Elizabeth Warren did her usual, theater. I enjoyed the theater because the attack, the pinata she went after definitely deserved it. But it's Elizabeth Warren, so take it with a grain of salt. Apparently, Jamie Dimon and J.P. Morgan, and I'm sure the other banks too, during the raging pandemic, felt it's still appropriate to rack up overdraft fees on millions of Americans that were going broke and lost their jobs, and many who got sick. Let's take a look at Warren, who, you know, take it with a grain of salt. It's Warren. She did, last minute get a super PAC and, took big money. But at least in this moment, she was on the right side.
Mr. Dimon, how much did JP Morgan collect in overdraft fees from their consumers in 2020?
Well, I think your numbers are totally inaccurate, but we'll have to sit down privately and go through
these
that.
These are public numbers.
And I also want to point out we did not overdraft.
Can you just answer my question? How much did JP Morgan collect?
We did not overdraft at the Fed account. And at any request,
so you never
said they needed,
I'm sorry, Mr. Dimon. That was Mr. Dimon. That was not the question. Did you had an automatic protection? So I'm asking. You were recommended, the regulators recommended you offer that same kind of protection to your customers. How much, in fact, did JP Morgan collect in overdraft fees from their customers in 2020? Do you know the number?
I don't know the number in front of me, but
I actually have the number in front of me.
Upon request,
$1.463 billion. That's nearly $1.5 billion that you collected from your customers. Now, do you know how much JP Morgan's profit would have been in 2020 if you had followed the recommendation of the regulators and waived overdraft fees to help struggling consumers? In other words, without that overdraft money, would your bank have been in financial trouble?
We waived the fees for customers upon request if they were under stress because of COVID.
I appreciate that you want to duck this question. Do you know how much your profits would have been if you'd actually waived all the fees as the regulators recommended?
We waived the fees every time.
The answer is your profits would have been $27.6 billion. I did the math for you. So here's the thing. You and your colleagues come in today to talk about how you stepped up and took care of customers during the pandemic, and it's a bunch of baloney. In fact, it's about $4 billion worth of baloney, but you could fix that right now. Mr. Dimon, will you commit right now to refund the $1.5 billion you took from consumers during the pandemic?
No.
Right now?
No.
No.
No, we won't. No, Elizabeth Warren, you could have actually done something about Jamie Dimon. You could have done something about Wall Street. If you would have got the hell out of the Democratic primary after you came in an awful, what was it? I think third place in New Hampshire. And J.P. Morgan, what he said, upon request, we waived the overdraft fees. Give me a fucking break. Of course, that's not true. $1.5 billion in overdraft fees while J.P. Morgan was still doing just fine. I'm sure other banks also did this. And it just goes to show you, it never even became a thing, Jen, to cancel the rent. So JP Morgan and other corporations, they got money through the original CARES Act. So they got plenty of money, corporations, I think $3 to $6 trillion in the original coronavirus bailout. But if you were down on your luck during coronavirus, you still got charged overdraft fees. If you are not caught up in your rent, you're screwed. The eviction moratorium's coming up at the end of June. It's just outrageous. And as Biden said, we could read the quote, Colin. This is what Biden told his donors on the campaign trail. Corporate America has to change its ways. It's not going to require legislation. I'm not proposing any. We've got to think about how we deal people back in, i.e., you guys need to, what did Hillary say? Cut it out. That's Biden's way of saying, you guys need to cut it out, but I'm not going to make you cut it out. I'm just going to suggest nicely while collecting your checks, you cut it out.
I waver back and forth because she has these moments where she'll do stuff like this, which seems good. You know, it kind of makes me want to root for her. Here she is going after him, going after Jamie Dimon, and she's holding his feet to the fire, kind of. And this is good. She's saying, will you give this money back to the people? And it's very clear. She does a good job of presenting it this way. Okay, your company has profited by this amount, and you essentially stole this amount of money from the people, from everyday working people. And to anyone watching, it's exceptionally clear. Your company, your rich company, you as a wealthy, rich person, you as a wealthy, rich asshole, you don't need this money. The everyday working class person needs this money. These are overdraft fees. This isn't money that your company earned. This is money you stole. Why can't you give it back to the people? And he just outright says, no. And she's just like, no. So it's a very striking video. And if you condense Elizabeth Warren down to just this video, it's good. Elizabeth Warren in this space is a good Elizabeth Warren. But that's the problem. That's not all Elizabeth Warren is. Elizabeth Warren is the one who is so surprised, and she can't figure out why it leaked, that Bernie supposedly said that a woman couldn't become president. Oh, from her new book. She doesn't know how that leaked. What a surprise. She stayed in and ruined, as you just said, not in these words, she ruined Bernie Sanders' chances of becoming president, and therefore ruined the hope for legitimate progressive change in this country. That was selfish of her. That was wrong of her. She spent most of her life being a Republican, and it wasn't like, oh, she was young and grew up in a Republican household. I grew up in a batshit crazy Republican household with like these nutso, like Christian, evangelical Christian parents. Well, one segment of my life was that. And so I thought that was the right thing. And I was taught that Democrats were evil. Like, my family boycotted Chick-fil-A and Target, for example, that kind of thing. So I was indoctrinated in that, and I thought Democrats were evil until it was like, wait a second, no, that's insane. Like, I like people, I care about people. Clearly, Republicans do not. And so I came into my own fairly young, but Elizabeth Warren did not. She spent most of her life as a Republican until pretty recently. And that's okay. People can change. That's just fine. But Elizabeth Warren also, you have to take the person on the whole. And when you take Elizabeth Warren on the whole, it's not just her holding Jamie Dimon's feet to the fire, which is good. It's also this other stuff where she backtracks, where she doesn't go far enough, where she doesn't go far enough on Medicare for all, or backtracks on how far she's willing to go. And I don't believe she's truly a progressive. I think she's progressive as far as it might get her in the Bernie Sanders world. And it didn't, get her that far because her true colors were shown. And so I don't know what to say. This is a good clip, like, good for her. Nothing's probably going to happen. Nothing will happen. And and so the world keeps spinning, and Jamie Dimon keeps getting richer, and the rest of us continue to suffer.
Not to mention, apparently, Democrats are giving a $10 billion bailout to Jeff Bezos's Space Force, or his little space company. So Jeff Bezos needs $10 billion because apparently, I don't know, whatever government agency gave the bid to somebody else other than Jeff Bezos' space company. So now they're creating another $10 billion to give to Jeff Bezos' space company. I mean, it's just outrageous, and it goes back to what we've been talking about. Nothing's going to change. I hate to tell you, folks, nothing's going to change unless people come together with their wallets and shut this economy down. That really is what has to happen. Because I got news for you. The Democratic Party right now is going to continue moving further and further away from their promises, frankly, further and further to the right. And what they're going to do is they're going to essentially elevate Marjorie Greene Taylor or Taylor Greene and batshit people and just make the midterms about, well, you want to put these people back in the majority? And a bunch of other woke identity, prey on people's same thing they preyed on with, Trump versus Biden. Like, this is an existential threat. Now's not the time. And it's always going to be now's not the time.